Mr. Jones, my name is Brad Gardner. I'm going to be the magistrate judge presiding over this proceeding here today. I want to caution you that this proceeding is public. It's on the internet. There's nothing that you will say here that is privileged or protected. So please rely upon your counsel to speak on your behalf, and don't say anything you don't want the whole world to know. Okay, sir? All right, looks like we lost Mr. Robinson.
And just Mr. Jones is on the calendar this Friday for bond, but as it is an armed robbery charge, he would need to be removed. His bond has to be heard in Superior Court.
Right. Mm-hmm. So, Mr. Robinson, what your lawyer just explained, there is, I think the statute is OCGA 1761H, cases that could possibly carry a life sentence. Those bond hearings are not provided for me as a magistrate judge to hear it. It has to be a Superior Court judge that's going to hear it. So even though you're on the calendar for this Friday, it's going to have to get rescheduled for whatever judge is presiding in the Superior Court to hear it. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Ms. Freeman, your witness is now back on the screen. Swear your witness in and let's get started.
Thank you, Judge. Do you want to call the charges and the warrant numbers into the record first?
Yes. This is State of Georgia versus Sarakius Jones, SARACKIUS Jones. Warrant number 2021 WA 18753. He's charged with aggravated assault. Warrant number 2021 WA 18755. He's charged with armed robbery. And warrant number 2021 WA 18756. He's charged with battery.
Thank you, Judge. Officer Robinson, would you raise your right hand, please? Do you swear and affirm that the testimony about to provide in the matter of State of Georgia versus Sarakius Jones will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth to help you God?
I do.
Please tell us your name and how you're employed.
Officer Robinson with the Clayton County Police Department.
Sir, how long have you been with the Clayton County Police Department?
8 years.
I'm sorry to hear you.
8 years.
Sir, were you working with the Clayton County Police Department on November 1st of 2021?
I was.
And on that day, were you dispatched to 1915 Flat Shoals Road in Riverdale, Georgia?
Yes and no. Actually, I was more of a transport officer. I wasn't super involved in this case. All I did was actually transport Sarakius Jones to jail, I wasn't the primary officer on this case.
Okay, so at some point, did you arrive at the location where Mr. Jones was apprehended?
Yes.
Okay. And before you got to the, I guess the point of transporting Mr. Jones, were you able to determine why you were there to transport Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Okay. And how were you able to gather that information regarding what had occurred?
Dispatch informed us that there was a robbery at the park. And myself and other officers encountered the vehicle at another location. We pulled the vehicle over and 4 gentlemen were located in the vehicle that fit the description of the robbery vehicle.
Do you recall what that description of the robbery vehicle was?
Excuse me?
Do you recall what that description of the vehicle was?
It was a 2015 white Mercedes-Benz SUV.
Was Mr. Jones in that vehicle?
Yes, he was.
And was he a driver or a passenger?
He was a passenger.
Was he a front seat passenger or in the back seat?
He was in the rear. He was a rear passenger behind the driver.
Now, Officer Robinson, you stated that, I guess, dispatch went over the radio about a robbery in the park. Was there a description of the individuals who allegedly committed this robbery?
From my understanding, it was 4 black males, young black males.
And with that description, was there also a description of a car?
Correct.
Okay. And is that why Mr. Jones and the other people in the car were pulled over?
Correct.
Okay. What park is this?
Flat Shoals Park.
Okay. Were you able to gather any information about what actually happened in the park?
And again, to my recollection, there was a robbery at the park. That's the basic that I got. Again, I was patrolling another area when I heard it go out over the radio, over dispatch, excuse me. And once Officer Crawl pulled out with that vehicle, I pulled out with Officer Crawl, and that was on Riverdale Road at the Valero. And she pulled over the vehicle matching the description, which contained 4 males. And that's how I got involved.
I'm sorry, go ahead. I didn't mean to cut you off.
That's how I got involved.
After you pulled over the vehicle, Officer Robinson, were you able to speak with Mr. Jones about why he was being pulled over?
At the moment, Officer Crawl pulled them over. I pulled up as they were taking Syracuse Jones and the other gentleman out of the vehicle. And because there were so many people, we just wanted to separate them. So again, I encountered Syracuse Jones in that manner, placed him in my vehicle and let him know that he was being detained at the moment due to being a suspect of a robbery.
At some point, well, first, did Mr. Jones make any statements about the incident?
He said he didn't know that the guys involved, he didn't know that the car was not, he stated he didn't know that the vehicle was, I don't think it was stolen. He stated he didn't know that once he got in the vehicle, he didn't know that the gentleman had been involved in a robbery.
Did he indicate anything about that he was picked up after the incident, anything like that?
Yes.
And were you able to confirm that he was picked up after the incident?
I was not. I didn't Mirandize him at that moment. Again, we were still gathering information because I came in on the tail end. So I didn't gather that information at the moment.
Okay. At some point, Officer Robinson, did the alleged victims have occasion to, were they brought to the scene where the individuals in the Mercedes-Benz were located?
Yes, they were.
Okay. And how many victims were there?
One, maybe 2. I know it was definitely 1, obviously. It could have been 2. Again, I wasn't the primary officer. I was more of a transport. So I just, again, from my recollection, definitely 1, maybe 2.
Okay. And Officer Robinson, you were the officer who completed the WAA. Is that correct?
Negative. I was a transport officer only. The officer that should have completed the WAA, I do believe, was Officer Crawl. She was the primary officer.
Okay, so let me just ask this because I'm looking at a warrantless arrest, probable cause affidavit, and it has your name as the arresting officer and your signature.
No, Again, all I did was transport. Not for this case. I wasn't the arresting officer. I guess you could say I placed him under arrest. I placed him in handcuffs and placed him in the back of my vehicle. But again, I wasn't the primary officer. As far as taking the main report, that was not me. All I did was transport him.
Miss Freeman, let me stop you for a second. Officer Robinson, I'm looking at the WAA also, and you're listed as the person, as the arresting officer.
I shouldn't have been on this one.
And
I completed a supplement. And when we complete supplements, usually meaning we're not the primary officer, we're the officers that assisted. I don't have that WAA because I didn't make the arrest for this.
So
I can tell you what I did. I can read you the report that I did.
No, Officer Robinson, I'm not discounting you in any manner. I'm saying that there is a notarized document that says that you were the arresting officer. And it has Clayton County Police Department employee number 23816.
Does it have go ahead.
It is notarized. It has your signature. It looks to be your signature. It has an S, looks like Robinson, as a signature dated first date of November 2021. But it has a different, well, and I believe that's from the Sheriff's Department, but it looks like it has a number 17926 for the notary public.
That was probably one of the, yeah, that was our supervisor. They have to notarize it.
Yes, Michael Hobbs.
Right.
Okay.
Again, in this case, I wasn't the primary, but when we pulled them out of the vehicle, I did transport. If my name's on a WAA, that would be only again for transporting.
So my understanding, and correct me if I'm wrong, Ms. Pleasant and Ms. Freeman, an officer can rely upon information received from another officer as it relates to making an arrest. The concern that I have so far is that it appears that you're saying you were simply there to transport this person to the jail, and therefore the information you have about the case is minimal.
Exactly.
Judge, that's what I was getting at, because I was going to refresh his recollection with the WAA, but he's saying that I'm just a bit confused, Officer Robinson, because your name and your signature are listed on the WAA.
Okay, that's fine. Can you tell me what the WAA, my part, would have said on that?
Well, I can't. Yeah, I can't.
I'm sorry, Miss. Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm sorry, Ms. Pleasant. I'll let her go. I'm sorry.
And no, I would say I would object certainly to the state reading the WAA to its witness, who clearly did not review it prior to court. Subpoena went to him, and the basis of the subpoena going to him is that the WAA appears to have been completed by him. So if he's taking charges for aggravated assault, armed robbery, and battery, he should have been prepared this morning to testify to defend those charges that he's down against my client.
Ms. Freeman?
Judge, I think, you know, by the questions I was asking, I think Your Honor had your own questions, and so you know, because again, I was going to refresh the recollection based on the WAA, but then Officer Robinson said that he didn't complete the WAA, but then his name and his signature are listed on the WAA.
I'm looking at the arrest summary. Yes, he was charged with these. He was charged with assault, armed robbery, and battery. I'm trying to look and see if I did complete that. I possibly did if it was passed off to us.
Well, Judge, I would say at this point, given the testimony that has been provided, and even just the answers that Officer Robinson has provided to Your Honor with your own questions, I don't believe I can go forward or continue with this hearing. Just ethically, I don't think I can do that.
I would agree. And Officer Robinson, to the extent that you have not been made aware of this, this document with the notary fixture to it, it carries weight, meaning that you could be placed in a position of potentially making a false statement based upon how this has been carried out. And that carries a 5-year, it's a felony offense that carries a 5-year penalty. And I take you at your word at everything that you've said here today, but just be careful about stuff that is ascribed to your name.
Understood. And I'm trying to, I'm looking at the report again. I'm pulling up my.
Well, I think Officer Robinson, I think at this point, like I said, I'm just going to let Judge Gardner, I guess, advise how you want to proceed, because I cannot proceed with the remaining of the hearing based on the information, Officer Robinson, that you've stated thus far. And I don't want to ask you any other questions and put you in
A precarious situation.
Yes, exactly.
And if it helps any, I will move to dismiss. The defense will move to dismiss. Obviously, this officer has already stated multiple times that he did not take out this warrant, that he's not familiar with the facts of the case. And as the court has already said, this is a charge that could potentially lead to life imprisonment for my client. So this is something that certainly the Constitution was a mandate for. The state is fully aware that they have the opportunity to take this case to grand jury. So Mr. Jones can still be indicted if and when there is sufficient evidence presented to the district attorney's office to go forward with the case. But for today, as Ms. Freeman has, and I appreciate her admitting she's not going to be able to meet her burden, even the low standard of probable cause will not be met with this witness. And so I would ask that the charges be dismissed at this time.
Do you have any rebuttal, Ms. Freeman?
Judge, I cannot proceed with this witness. And the only thing I could ask for is that the hearing be basically held until I could figure out who the witness should be and have that witness appear.
So I'm going to grant Ms. Pleasant's request for a dismissal. I understand the position that Ms. Freeman has been placed in as it relates to this case. But I have to balance both sides. And as it stands, it appears from Officer Robinson's testimony that he was a transport officer. He was there, but as it relates to the facts of this case, I don't believe that he would be able to meet that burden. And I appreciate Ms. Freeman not trying to beat a dead horse and drag it over the 50-yard line. Officer Robinson, I appreciate your participation here. You're going to need to speak to the people that are involved in that case and make certain that the information that is relayed is information that is true and correct and not just placing someone's name on it. Mr. Jones, I am going to dismiss these charges here today. These are serious charges. Does not mean that the state can't obtain an indictment on these charges tomorrow. It just appears that the wrong information was laid out. And so there's going to be a dismissal, but that does not necessarily mean the end of this for you. The state has, and now they're changing the statute of limitations, generally 4 years to pursue a felony charge. For some cases, it goes up a little bit. I'm sorry.
7 years for this one.
Okay, so it'll be 7 years that they can pursue this case. So your win today may not be a win forever. Okay. All right. So that's going to be a ruling of the court for this case. Charges are going to be dismissed, and we'll just see what happens later.
Thank you, Officer. And may Officer Robinson be excused?
He may be excused. Do you have a question, sir?
That's the thing. Again, on my supplement, I see what I did, and I'm trying to get to the point where I can get back to the WAA because I'm trying to look at the report and I can't pull up the WAA. So again, I don't want to look at it, not to sound selfish, but obviously I don't want to be in any kind of trouble.
No, sir. No, you're not in any trouble at all. I'm a person that I believe that it's better to give more information and less information. And so from what I see, there's not anything that I could say, Mr. Robinson did this wrong. But your name is listed on this arrest affidavit.
Correct.
And you're basically swearing to knowing these facts.
Right.
And so before your name is placed on something where you're swearing that you know the facts, be certain, because I'm certain that with Ms. Freeman, she pulls up the WAA, your name is listed, you're the person that she's going to call as a witness.
I understand that. I don't know. It's one of those situations. I have to look at the WAA, but yet not being the primary officer, I know I was a transport, and I'm trying to think, my recollection, I don't remember me being the person in charge.
Judge, if I can, just because I know we can go on and on about this, Officer Robinson, what I would suggest you do, you have the number from our witness coordinator. She contacted you. If you have any other questions about what happened, reach out to her and let her know that you want to speak to me, and I'll try to give you a call a little bit later. But I certainly don't want to hold up the court going back and forth with this, but just know that I could not proceed based on your testimony, and I didn't want you to put yourself in a position that could potentially cause you some harm down the line.
Understood.
Okay.
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
All right.
All right. Who do we have next?
Just let me see what hearings we have next.